Since Florida defeated Ohio State at the end of the 2006 season to win the national championship as a 7-point underdog, thus beginning the SEC run of national championships, really no one has debated on a large scale that the SEC is the best conference in college football until Florida State ended that reign, defeating Auburn in the last few seconds at the Rose Bowl. And then last season, Alabama getting knocked out by Ohio State, the Buckeyes winning the national championship. And then out on the left coast, you've got the Pac-12 emerging with UCLA under Jim Mora, Oregon consistently winning, Stanford coming back from the grave under Jim Harbaugh, and then David Shaw. The Pac-12 has emerged as arguably the best conference in college football. Unfortunately, the SEC and the Pac-12 did not play one game, not in the regular season, not in the postseason in 2014. But on the field, even though I believed and said this, SEC fans, several times, that I still believed that the SEC, despite the decrease in quarterback play, that the SEC was still the better conference, but the Pac-12 was catching up. But the SEC still better, although the results in 2014 went with the Pac-12 at 13-6, performing much better than the SEC that went 11-11 against the Power 5 conferences. Again, Pac-12 13-6 against slightly better competition. All right, in week 1 of 2015, let's turn the page, forget 14. We move on to 2015. In week 1, the Pac-12 came nowhere close to the performance of the SEC. Finally, we got these two conferences on the same field with like opponents. So Texas A&M, we shall see how it plays out in the SEC. Right now, most would consider Texas A&M to be the 5th or 6th best team in the SEC, taking on Arizona State. Maybe more like the 3rd or 4th best team in the Pac-12. And the Aggies dominated 38-21, 3-touchdown victory for, I believe, 38-17, 21-point win for Texas A&M over Arizona State. That was the big game. And elsewhere, the Pac-12 did not fare well in week 1 this season. 7-5 overall, 2-2 against the Power 5. The big wins were not so big. Utah defeated Michigan as expected. So that's, again, a top 25 team from last year. Utah defeating a Michigan team that's going to be improved. I have no doubt about that, but not that much improved under Jim Harbaugh. This is still a struggling Michigan program that should finish about 7-5, maybe 8-4. They went 5-7 last year, far removed from the top 25. Utah dominated that game in Ann Arbor last year. Michigan played much better this year. It was a closer game. Utah still the better team, wins at home. Not a huge win there. They should win that game. They're a 5-point favorite. UCLA wins at the Rose Bowl against Virginia, beating one of the worst teams in the ACC. So those were the two Power 5 wins for the Pac-12. Not impressive. They had to win those games. The losses against the Power 5, I'll throw in Boise State as well. So you've got Washington coming off an 8-win season, 8-6 in the Pac-12 last year, losing at Boise State. No embarrassment there. The Broncos are tough, coming off a 12-win Fiesta Bowl winning season over Arizona out of the Pac-12 in 2014. So Boise State, Washington, they played till the end. They played till the final gun, and Boise State wins at home. So that's not a huge embarrassment for the Pac-12. They were an underdog in that game by double digits, and Washington lost. They played well in the second half before succumbing to the Broncos. Texas A&M again, the win over Arizona State, that's a big one in the Pac-12, not showing up against the SEC, and these two conferences finally meeting on the same field after not seeing one another for the entirety of 2014. So that's a big loss for the Pac-12, taking a like-seeded team, Arizona State, against Texas A&M and losing by 3 touchdowns. And then the big loss here for the Pac-12 is Stanford going to Northwestern. Stanford, 8 wins last year. Before that, double-digit wins, BCS bowl games 4 consecutive years. Going to Northwestern, a team that went 5-7 last year, 3-5 in the Big Ten. And Stanford lost by 10 points at Northwestern. Huge loss for the Pac-12 there. And then also, if you're looking at just bad losses taking on FCS schools and group of five schools, Colorado lost to Hawaii. That's not a shocker. It was controversial at the end. Buffs lose that game. But what about Wazoo losing to Portland State by a touchdown? That's a bad loss for the Pac-12. It's a D rating on the report card for the Pac-12. USC blew away Arkansas State. That's to be expected. Arizona beats Texas San Antonio by 10 points. Let's discard those games. Let's get down to the games that matter. 7-5 overall, 2-2 against the Power Five. Throw in the Boise State game, that's 2-3. And so the Pac-12 did not show up. The only two wins were very much expected as big favorites against Michigan and Virginia. That's my thoughts on the Pac-12. There will be one huge game in week 2 to rate this conference when Oregon goes across country to take on Michigan State. Of course, there are a couple games coming up against Notre Dame in the form of Stanford and USC as well. Chime in on the Pac-12. Does it rate with the SEC, or does this give us indication that the SEC still has quite a gap over the Pac-12 from conference to conference? Let's talk about it right here on Mark Rogers TV.